Hey there, and welcome to the first show of Coffee with God. Let's give thanks for the sacred being. My name is Whittaker, and who am I? Well, I'm a seminarian. I go to the Graduate Theological Union. I'm in my third year, and I will hopefully be ordained this summer as a pastor. I'm a radical inclusionist, meaning that I like all people. I'm doing interfaith work. And I've had a very long and interesting journey to get here. So the reason I decided to do the show, well, actually, I didn't decide. I've kind of been told to do the show. God has spoken to me, spoken this into my heart for a long time now. Quite often, many times during the day, that this is something I need to be doing. And people have told me that I have a way of being able to speak to them that kind of gets them to think about God, it makes God accessible. So I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Why do I call it Coffee with God? Well, when I pray, it's usually when I'm having coffee with God. When I have my morning coffee, because that's the time where I am quieter and I'm not caffeinated enough, and so my will hasn't kicked in yet. Canned prayer, like Our Fathers and stuff, never really works for me. God just kind of sits there and goes, are you done yet? When are you going to talk about the real stuff? I've found in seminary and in my journey that God meets us where we're at. Right where you're at. You don't have to be anywhere but right however you're feeling, whatever's going on. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it figured out. That God can meet me in those mornings where I just sit there and I'm like, I really hate my life today. And God's going to sit there and be with me. Or when I'm feeling sad or grumpy about something, or when I'm frustrated. I've had times where I've been pretty mad at God. Yeah, that too. God gets it and God meets me there because God's love is unconditional. God just will be there and meets me and embraces me and lets me in and just lets me be there. And I also know that I can't pull the wool over God's eyes because God knows it. So when I try to go and just be rogue, just doesn't work, because God knows what's in my heart, and it's important for me to be able to tell that to God. So the problem I have here, though, and that a lot of people have, is that we've been taught that we have to be a certain way when we pray to God, that we have to have our stuff together, that we hear that God will listen to us, but yet we shouldn't be this way, we shouldn't be that way. Here's the problem, okay? The problem is that we are spiritual beings in a human body. We have our humanness to deal with versus the human condition. And that means dealing with all the other spiritual people in human bodies, dealing with their humanness. This can definitely push your Christian buttons, or any other buttons, your Buddhist buttons, your whatever buttons are there for you. Yeah, those people that you want to stab in the head with a fork, but you don't because you can't, because you'll get into trouble. This is what we have to deal with, and this is why we need prayer. Now, coffee, the sacred substance from the sacred being, helps us. Okay, I think God created this like on the probably the second day. He's like had a lot of stuff to create when he created the earth and the world. So probably by the second day he was getting tired, so he invented coffee. So in Coffee with God, what we're going to be doing on the show is I'm going to come to you every week so you can sit in your home or at your favorite coffee shop. And you have your little latte there, and you're supposed to be somewhere, but you're not. I know that that's okay. That'll be our little secret, okay? What we're going to do with this show is we're going to talk about various topics and how we deal with that as humans versus life on life's terms, which sometimes sucks. It really sucks sometimes. So how do we deal with that? And how do we call on God? How do we talk to God about this? How do we know that God's definitely going to be there? It took me a long time to understand that God gets me right here. I don't have to be anywhere else. We're going to talk about stuff like waiting on God. And we've all dealt with that. How do we find God? How do we see God? Where does God show up in our lives? We're going to talk about stuff like grief. Grief is we suck at grief. We just do a bad job of it. So we're going to talk about that and how to take that to God. And hopefully what's going to happen is we're going to have a little community. And we may even have coffee and donuts Eucharist. And maybe even have the little donut holes for the holiest. Get it? Okay, I'm going to get Twitter poop for that. I know that. But that's what we're going to be doing. Hopefully we're going to build a community around this. And I'd encourage you all to write to me at coffee.with, except it's the with without the I, because it's all about God. So we left the I out on purpose. Coffee, wth.god at Gmail, like Godmail, but only gmail.com. Okay, we're on Twitter at the same thing, coffee.wth.god. And I encourage you to write to me and let me know what topics you would like to hear about and talk about your struggles and when we can take them on. We're also going to have people come on the show. We're going to do interviews with people and talk about various things. And we're going to have a good time. We're going to commune together. We're going to learn how to talk with God and enjoy coffee. Have a good day. Church of the Sacred Bean. Yes. And we'll have donuts and coffee Eucharist.